It was a normal morning in September 1982. The sun was rising slowly over the quiet neighborhoods near Chicago. People were getting ready for school and work. Coffee machines were running. Radios were playing soft music. It felt like any other day. No one knew that something terrible had already started. Inside many homes, there was a small red and white bottle sitting in bathrooms and kitchens. It was a common medicine. People trusted it. They used it for headaches, fever, and pain. The name on the bottle was Tylenol. For years, families had trusted this medicine. Parents gave it to children. Adults used it after long work days. It was normal, safe, ordinary. But on that quiet morning, something inside some of those bottles was no longer safe. One of the first reported victims was a 12-year-old girl. She woke up feeling sick. Her parents wanted to help her feel better. They gave her 1 capsule of Tylenol. They had no reason to worry. Within a short time, everything changed. She suddenly became very ill. Her parents rushed to get help. Doctors tried to understand what was happening, but it happened too fast. She died that day. Doctors were confused. She had been healthy. There was no serious illness, no warning signs, no clear reason. Then, later that same day, another person died. This time, it was a young man. He had taken Tylenol for a headache. Soon after, he collapsed. Again, doctors were confused. Then a third person, and then more. In just a short time, 7 people died in the Chicago area. They were different ages, different backgrounds. They did not know each other, but they all had one thing in common. Each of them had taken Tylenol capsules shortly before they died. At first, no one wanted to believe it. How could a trusted medicine cause this? It did not make sense. Hospitals began asking families questions. What did they eat? Where did they go? Did they take any medicine? Slowly, a pattern appeared. Every victim had taken Tylenol from a bottle recently purchased from local stores. Police were called. Investigators began collecting bottles from the victims' homes. They sent the capsules to laboratories for testing. The results were shocking. Inside some capsules, there was cyanide. Cyanide is a powerful poison. It is not something that appears by accident. This was not a factory mistake. This was done on purpose. The news spread quickly across Chicago, then across the entire United States. Television stations interrupted programs with emergency warnings. Newspapers printed large headlines. Radio hosts told people not to take Tylenol. Fear spread fast. Parents ran to their medicine cabinets. Many threw away bottles immediately. Stores removed Tylenol from shelves. People began to ask one question: who would do this? Police quickly realized something important. The poison was not added at the factory. If it had been, there would have been many more deaths across the country. The poison bottles were found only in certain stores in the Chicago area. That meant someone had bought bottles from stores, opened them, placed poisoned capsules inside, and returned them to the shelves. Someone had walked calmly through normal stores, pretending to shop. No one noticed anything strange. There were no security cameras like today, no strong packaging. At that time, medicine bottles were easy to open. The capsules were also easy to pull apart. A person could empty the powder inside, replace it with something else, and close it again without damage. It was simple, and that simplicity made it terrifying. Investigators tried to retrace steps. They checked which stores sold the bottles. They interviewed employees. They searched for anyone acting suspiciously, but there were no clear witnesses. The killer had blended in with normal shoppers. Meanwhile, the company that made Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, faced a crisis. Their product was now connected to death. The company had two choices: protect profits or protect people. They chose people. They announced a nationwide recall. Over 30 million bottles were removed from stores. Production stopped. It cost the company millions of dollars, but they wanted to show that safety was more important than money. Still, fear continued to grow. People began to feel unsafe in everyday life. If medicine could be poisoned, what else could be unsafe? Food, drinks, other products? The idea that a stranger could turn something ordinary into a weapon was deeply disturbing. Then something new happened. A letter was sent to the company. The writer demanded $1 million to stop the poisonings. The letter claimed responsibility. Police traced the letter to a man named James William Lewis. He was arrested. However, it is important to note that James William Lewis was charged with extortion only, not murder. While he tried to profit from the fear, the evidence against him as the actual killer was weak. He denied poisoning the bottles. Police searched his home and investigated his past, but they could not prove he was the murderer. To this day, no one has been officially convicted of the murders. That is what makes this story even more frightening. The person responsible was never caught. Years passed. Technology improved. DNA testing became stronger. Investigators reopened the case several times. They retested evidence and interviewed people again. But the mystery remained. Some experts believe the killer wanted attention. Others believe it was about power. The power to cause fear across an entire country. Think about it. The killer did not know the victims personally. There was no revenge, no personal anger. The victims were random. Randomness makes fear stronger, because if it is random, it could happen to anyone. The Tylenol Murders changed America. After 1982, medicine packaging changed forever. Today, when you open a bottle and see a safety seal, that exists because of this case. New federal regulations required tamper-evident packaging after the case. This was a major shift in how products were sold. Boxes were sealed. Bottles had plastic neckbands. Caps became harder to open. Companies realized they had to protect products from criminals. But even with new safety rules, something invisible had changed. Trust. Before 1982, people did not think twice about taking medicine from a shelf. After 1982, there was always a small moment of hesitation, a small voice asking, "Is this safe?" That voice is part of the legacy of the Tylenol murders. The families of the victims were left with deep pain and unanswered questions. They did not get a trial. They did not get a confession. They only got silence. Some people believe the killer may have enjoyed watching the news coverage. Maybe he sat in his living room, watching reporters speak about fear and panic. Maybe he saw parents crying. Maybe he saw the nation worried. And maybe he felt powerful. That idea is chilling. The crime showed how fragile normal life can be. A simple shopping trip became deadly. A common medicine became a weapon. And a stranger walked away unnoticed. The case is still discussed in criminal psychology classes. It is studied in business schools for how Johnson & Johnson handled the crisis. It is mentioned in law enforcement training about product tampering. But for many people, it remains a reminder that evil does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks normal. Sometimes it walks into a store quietly. Sometimes it stands in line and pays at the register. And sometimes it leaves behind something small, simple, and deadly. Decades later, the case remains open. Police still say they would welcome new information, but time makes investigations harder. Memories fade, witnesses move away, evidence becomes old. The person responsible may have lived a normal life afterward. They may have had friends, a job, a family, no one around them knowing what they had done. That possibility makes this story feel unfinished, because there is no final chapter, no clear ending, only a question that still echoes. Who did it, and why? The Tylenol murders are not remembered because of violence alone. They are remembered because they changed how people see the world. They showed that safety can be broken. They showed that trust can be poisoned. And they showed that sometimes the scariest crimes are the ones without answers. In the end, this is not just a story about poisoned capsules. It is a story about fear, about how quickly fear can spread, about how one person can affect millions, and about how some mysteries remain in the dark, even decades later. When you open a bottle today and hear the crack of a seal, that sound is history. It is a reminder of 1982, a reminder of 7 lives lost, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary objects hide the darkest secrets. And somewhere, maybe, the truth is still waiting to be discovered.